the pros and cons of buying real estate offshore. Today we discuss. Today we are going to address this thing about buying, investing, just purchasing properties abroad, real estate properties, of course. That many, let's say you're watching this, you have never purchased a property outside of your country, and what can you expect? The first thing is that you're not in Kansas anymore, and there'll be a couple of things that you might know, and of course, each market, not only each country, but each market within each country, they have particular, nuances and differences compared to the overall experience that you are aspiring to have. Now, of course, the paperwork in order to buy real estate properties abroad is different. Something that you have to keep in mind. And also, first, if you are allowed or not to buy properties at any given country. The prices, of course, this is something that I mean, each market is completely different, and many times many people, what they think is that, let's say for instance in the United States, outside of the United States, everything is going to be cheaper, and in many cases that's the case. However, not necessarily is going to be as cheap as you might think, or the cheap properties are usually cheap for a reason, usually small units, also not necessarily on the best markets, or they're not gonna be McMansions or penthouses and things like that. And let's say you go to a cheap market, let's say relatively, and okay, with a low investment, let's say a couple of tens of thousands of dollars, you can get a property. Indeed, but it's on those same markets a nice property, a nice apartment, well located, luxurious, or a nice, a big house, a beautiful home, is gonna cost way more than, let's say, a low end entry level that you are expecting compared, to the, let's say, cheap properties that you have seen online. Also, something that you have to take into account is the yields of the properties that you are seeing, that many times the yields are not going to be great. There are markets with, when I mean yield, is the gross income that you're going to get renting that property year over year. Many times you have something around 4 to 5%. Some cases you have as low as 2 or 3%. And on a very good scenario, you can get properties around roughly 10%, and maybe if you're lucky, a little bit more. So many times it's not like you are buying a property, you are doing, you're doing, the biggest deal or something like that. You're gonna get, a market beta regarding real estate income on a particular market. So not necessarily because a property is fancy or the market is interesting, your yield is gonna be great. Also, you have to take into account and consider what is going on a particular market regarding their economical and political situation, that many times you miss that mark and doesn't know what will what will happen on the near future or the long term. Now, something that might happen is that on this particular, socio-political economic cycles that you see at any given country, maybe you buy close to the bottom of a particular, societal cycle that you have at any given market, and you buy close to the bottom, You buy with a low yield, and then of course you benefit from the growth, the future growth, when the cycle gets better, and you get capital appreciation, and the yield is going to go up because now the property is worth more. Therefore, the, let's say, the market beta on real estate rents and income is going to improve as well. So many times that's actually the, let's say, the alpha, the great opportunity that you took advantage. And another thing that we have to talk seriously, especially if you are an American or a Canadian, is credit. Usually, you are not gonna get credit on a market abroad, and this is something that I get asked this a lot. Most of the time when I have a new American client, and by the way, of course, you are if you are a novice on these things, you are on your learning curve, so no disrespect on that. But the markets abroad, getting mortgages, getting credit from the bank, uh, most likely 99% of the time is not gonna happen. And when it does happen, it usually is on a high interest rate. What happens is, let's explain this for the people that is not from the States, that usually in the US you can get a property just putting like a 15 to 20% down payment, and the rest is financed by a mortgage from the bank with a reasonable interest rate. Now, and usually it's for many years, between 15 and 30 years. On the rest of the world, that doesn't happen. If you're a local citizen on a, let's say, a middle of the pack market, what will happen is that usually you have to come up like close to the 50% of the property, or sometimes you just have to save a lot in order to pay straight up in cash such property. And many times, many people from the US doesn't understand that. Also, in Europe, you have a similar situation that even you have a 40-year mortgages on Europe, and also the interest rates are kind of low, depending also on the country in the European Union. Now, the interest rate has gone up on the past 5 years or so, depending on the ECB rate. But the main issue is that if you're going abroad and if you're planning to purchase a real estate property, with credit, most likely the chances are slim to none. And lastly, if you are buying a real estate property abroad, please think about which is the purpose on such property, because many times people want to buy because they like going visiting that particular market, that particular city, that particular location. So basically it will be something like a vacation home that maybe when you are not around in town, you can rent it, can do some Airbnb or use some local service in order to get, let's say, a nice cash flow on that particular property. Now, many times, not necessarily, that would mean that is a good investment to do so. Many times, it's just a lifestyle purchase. Same thing if you're buying, a property because you thought it was beautiful. And by the way, I've been there, done that many times, watching properties that are so beautiful. I just want to buy it because they are so beautiful without any particular, fundamental analysis, but sometimes the properties are so sexy that you want to get them. Yeah, I've been there. I'm guilty. But many times, those properties are not the ones that are going to give you a good yield or a good capital appreciation. Many times, those properties are just lifestyle properties. And okay, you can maybe cash flow a little bit such properties and say you own them. but many times those are not going to be the best properties for traditional investing. Also, many properties that you see around on nice locations, something like that, could be a pied a terre. So let's say you travel a lot for business or otherwise to a particular city, you stay like 10 times a year, something like that, you want to own a property over there. And if you have the liquidity and it's not going to affect other operations in your life regarding investing, regarding, typical expenses or something, or some money that's going to your main business or something like that. And on that regard, I don't recommend it unless you have a particular capital that is on, let's say, is a leisure capital. You are not doing anything about it. Okay, it's nice to have, just a pied a terre on a city that you visit frequently. So that will be all for today. Just a nice, video in order to sum it up your thoughts and ideas when you are buying real estate offshore. So if you have done so, please leave it in the comments below. Which is your favorite real estate market? That not necessarily has to be a good market, just a nice market close to the beach or on a city that you have, let's say, some nostalgia for. So leave it in the comments below. Thank you for watching Continental Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. And if you want to work with us, continentalinsider.com. Thanks again, and have a nice day.